Hello everyone, Nolan West here. Normally when I do these videos I refrain about talking about the federal government. It's usually very frustrating, but I have started to do it a little more because their actions regarding the pandemic are a lot bigger than what we can take at the state level. And the federal government has divided up their pandemic response into three different bills that all have different phases, phase 1, 2, and 3, and two of them have already been signed into law. About a week ago, the president signed the first phase into law. This was an $8.3 billion package in funding for coronavirus relief. This money can be used for developing vaccines, disease surveillance, disaster loans, and personal protective equipment for clinics and hospitals. The bill had great bipartisan support and passed rather easily. And the president signed it into law almost immediately. And 6 days ago, Congress passed and the president signed phase 2. And this bill provided $104 billion in relief to workers and businesses around the country. For people impacted by COVID-19, it provided 10 days of fully paid sick leave and 12 weeks of paid family leave for parents at 2/3 their salary. It also increased funding for food assistance programs, and lastly, the bill required insurers and Medicare and Medicaid to fully cover testing and related services for the virus, which is really important because we don't want anybody to forego treatment because they don't have the money. And I've covered both phases in the previous videos, so if you want more details on that than those two sentences, please check those out. But now there is phase 3, which is big. This bill is expected to be $1.8 trillion. This is the main push the federal government is doing to stabilize the economy. This bill is so big I can't possibly cover it in one video. However, I will try. So please let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glossing over a lot. And if you want to take a look at the bill yourself, I will include a link in the description above so you can enjoy that exciting reading. The first section of this bill is intended to keep workers paid and employed to stabilize our economy overall. It opens up the Small Business Administration to make loans under the Paycheck Protection Program. This allows businesses to get low-interest loans from the federal government to manage their payroll costs incurred by COVID-19. And these loans may be partially forgiven depending on how many jobs are saved. So employers who have big gaps in their payroll, this helps them cover it for a short period of time. And this bill also contains $10 billion for economic injury disaster loans for small businesses, which I've mentioned before. You'll see a couple links in my past posts. These are low-interest loans that allow small businesses to endure the economic injury they've had to suffer. The people are seeing massive losses due to this, and this can help patch that gap. The Phase 3 bill also expands unemployment insurance by allowing those traditionally not eligible for unemployment benefits, like independent contractors, to be able to receive some assistance through the end of 2020. The bill also increases unemployment compensation by $600 a week for 3 months. It also waives the 1-week waiting period before federal funding comes through on unemployment claims. So people will be able to have access to their benefits much quicker because there's going to be a lot of unemployed people, sadly. The bill also expands unemployment by 13 weeks till the end of 2020 to give people extra time to find work while we get through this crisis. Lastly, we have the part of the bill you've probably heard the most about because it's been in the press nonstop, the recovery checks. Each individual making $75,000 or less a year, or a couple $150,000 or less, will get a recovery check. These checks are $1,200 plus $500 per child. And the goal here is to provide immediate relief to families and keep consumer spending higher to try and mitigate the damage to our economy. The first phase bill had significant bipartisan support, as I mentioned, and sailed through Congress and was signed into law almost immediately. The second phase bill didn't go quite as smoothly. It was presented to the House members less than an hour before they were expected to vote on it, so a lot of them voted against it on that. But it still passed with bipartisan support. And to fix that, there was a lot of problems in the bill, and they had to pass another bill later to fix some problems, but they did do that as well. And the outbreak of this virus has given our country a pleasant pause on Congress's non-stop partisan bickering. However, that seems to have come to an end with this third phase bill. I mean, there've been a lot of shenanigans here. Just before the third phase bill was being brought up for a vote in the Senate, Speaker Pelosi showed up with a wish list of demands, ranging from mandating diversity quotas on corporate boards to paying off the debt of the post office. I mean, these things have nothing to do with the crisis at hand, but she ended up galvanizing all but one Democrat senator to vote against the bill, and she took down the bill basically single-handedly. The next day, Speaker Pelosi introduced the Democrats' Phase 3 bill, which is entirely appropriate, but the bill had a litany of partisan demands completely unrelated to COVID-19. And it massively increased all the proposals that were already in the bill. So the bill went from 247 pages to 1,404, and the price tag went up to $2.5 trillion. I find this incredibly frustrating. The size of the bill and the price tag alone shows you it isn't a serious proposal. No one will have time to read it, and we can't even come close to affording it. It's all partisan posturing. And that isn't to say the House shouldn't be allowed to come up with their own bill and have negotiations, but to bring a boatload of partisan demands during an emergency is irresponsible. Each of these bills had been negotiated with both parties. I mean, just look what's in these bills that I briefly covered, and there's some more stuff. Expanded food stamps, federally funded family and sick leave, money to support minority and women-owned businesses specifically, and checks sent directly to middle-class and low-income families. These are all typically Democrat priorities, and it shows how much effort the Senate went into making this a bipartisan bill. I hope this nonsense ends quickly. I mean, I don't particularly like the Senate bill at all, but Congress should be engaged in serious discussion and decision making, not partisan jousting. And once they come up with a compromise, I'll let you know what's in it. And in the meantime, stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll see you later.